Okay then, whatever your favourite subject is, there's something that we all do with our favourite subjects. That we're studying it, or we research different subjects, and occasionally we get things, we start to repeat mantras that we've heard other people say about said subject, but then it's easy to get to not research what you believe about your subject while you're researching the subject. And so I started hearing a number of variations in percentage of how much percentage in body language is there that's non-verbal. I would, I was thinking of pushing on perhaps 70%, 72 in certain contexts, and in a lot of contexts, really, in my social circles, not so much some others, and 60 to 70. I've said 80 before now, and I thought, hang on, it's a bit high. Not sure, but that's what they say anyway. So maybe it's true. But when you really start analysing what you believe about the subject you're researching, the certain things you believe, and instead of repeating it just because others who are into that subject keep repeating it, you get a group of people then who are passionate about something and go, hang on a minute, we need to educate each other a bit more. And if you look at Mark Bowden on YouTube, I think it's a YouTube channel called the Behavioral Panel. There's a number of other experts there. I don't consider myself an expert in body language. I'm still learning when I get the time to even learn. My life is kind of hectic with all different comings and goings, let alone try and pin down a day job this time of year. It's absolutely horrendous and the errors are high and so on. So I'm reading a book which I will mention more about the book once I've decided it's worth reading through. At the moment, uh, so far so good. This is an impressive, easy to read introduction going through. And they've come to a page. This book isn't necessarily about body language. It is about trying to understand other people. Um, Analysis, profiling. Some people will find this a bit creepy, profiling people, really understanding them in depth. Body language will never give you as much as an edge on its own without these other tools that arrive in some books. Some other books are a bit woo woo and really not, the claims and the repeats and mantras or what they believe about subjects rather than researching, just like the body language mantra. And there's somebody called, I'm not too sure how they have their surname pronounced, but we'll call them Albert anyway for argument's sake. Albert Meharbian, I'm not sure. Call him Albert. And I thought this was a ridiculous percentage. Body language trainers around the world enjoy citing a study published in the 1970s. It's going back a bit by Albert. His study suggests that 93% of interpersonal communication is nonverbal. Can't be. It's too high. It only leaves 70. It only leaves 7% remaining. I think that's really, really, you're gonna get more percentage in if you say a whole sentence sarcastically than a whole same sentence non-sarcastically. That's one example, one variation. Um, and I think this in different contexts and so on. There's too many variables to have it just 7%. So 93 is rather too high. I think, I would say possibility at pushing this, at 73. I've said 80 before now myself and I think that's wrong. Oh, and then thinking, oh, that's what I've heard others say and the experts. But did I really hear that or imagine it? So, got to analyze yourself a bit on what we believe about certain things, which I did, and looked up a number of things. Ended up buying this book, and in here talks about Albert doing this study with 93%. It's ridiculously high, and as it says here, 7% of what's going on in a conversation is the verbal bit. The writer here says, I and many other experts, I'm not an expert and still, I don't think you're ever going to be 100% like with studying things like this. You're never going to be necessarily expert, but you can get really good at your game, all right? And yeah, experts such as Mark Bowden, again, look him up. He's on a YouTube channel called the Behavior Panel. Scott Rose, Rose, Rouse, Greg Hartley, and Tonya Riemann disagree. It is, as Mark Bowden says, a body language myth. If you're face to face with someone and they don't speak your language, chances are you won't be able to communicate anything of substance non-verbally. We can get within the right context, communication of what a lady wants. I mean, the context is already there at work anyway. Communication, and she's deaf. She doesn't word words. She sort of makes sounds at us. We have a good rapport in terms of the just, do you want a receipt? Do you want a bag? A few other rudimentary simplicities, and you pay it by card or cash, and it's all like sign. It's not sign language for the deaf. It's just like sign language with smart page there. We just basically tell me that you're drawing a square handles. Do you want a bag? Do you want a shopping bag? And your mouth receipt. And sometimes she wants a receipt, sometimes she doesn't, and that's okay. And we're able to do that, but you're not going to have an in-depth conversation of what are you up to today then, and this and that. She's always happy with the service that we supply, so that's good. So you're not going to have an in-depth conversation of anything but substance non-verbally. This number 93 might be a little high. Here, so just reading this to you out of the book. Here's the interesting part. The same universe. This is funny, really. Again, how things propagate. We really need to question what you believe. It's like, how do I know this? Do I just assume just because it's what I've heard others say, even experts say? But then you got to ask, did you hear an expert say it? Or did you hear somebody refer to an expert claiming it? And, you just got to be more vigilant with some of the, especially subjects like this, I think. But here's the ironic thing. The interesting part, the same university that published the study doesn't teach nonverbal communication. So the university that came up with this study that claimed that it was this 93% doesn't even teach nonverbal communication. So how the hell do they... It's very pompous for them to claim to know, right? If you obtain a PhD from UCLA, you will average only a few minutes learning about the importance of nonverbal communication. This isn't that UCLA is a bad college. In fact, all universities have about the same amount of training for psychologists in nonverbal communication. And sure, that this is a thing with uh, as you growing up, as you went to school and you growing up as a kid, then go to school and leaving school, growing up, leaving school, getting a job, all of that transition up to an adult and being responsible and getting your own job. Did you ever really get taught anything about body language, even by your parents or whatever? No, what you got taught was don't say that word like that. Make sure you don't sound so sarcastic, or don't do this, don't do that. And it was always don't in terms of the spoken word, emphasis on the spoken word. There may have been things like how you hold yourself, try to look a bit more confident, but they weren't necessarily that aware of why do you not look confident right now. You know, well, it might have been because you were shrugged over, your shoulders were sort of shrugged over, and you're looking at the ground instead of upright, like the more confident stance like this. You know, knowing what it is. This is why people in who don't necessarily have the knowledge of this as well will feel like a person's not being competent or they're hiding something, whatever it is, because there's things leaking through the body language. And it will make them feel like that because we have this ancient language. Body language is ancient language. So automatic, so not unconscious, but subconscious. Because it's threshold, you know, we're aware of it when we focus on it more. And all these different cues will make you feel a particular way, but then you start to question, why did I not trust that what that person was saying? It didn't quite feel right. Well, it was because of their body language, you know. So moving forward with this article in here, it says if non-verbal communication is 93% of communication, and all psychological therapy is communication, why do we spend less than 0.003% of the time training people in what is apparently so critically important? Very good point, right? Let's conservatively examine that about 2/3 of communication is what's being said, and in brackets they got or 2/3, 2/3. We will delve our brain into this later. If the study shows us anything, it shows us that nonverbal communication is essential regardless of what precise number we assign it. And again, I think there's going to be a variation in percentage in certain contexts, in certain situations of the person's body language communication. So, you know, typically, classically, the more we try to learn about ourselves, the more we learn how more complicated and nuanced we are against our own very linear assumptions and desire to put things in boxes and categorize things and pigeonhole. Right? So here we go. Where was I reading this? Community essential. If the study shows us anything, it shows us that nonverbal communication is essential, regardless of what precise number we assign it. It's more than half for sure. For simplicity's sake, we will use the 2/3 rule for this, so somewhere around 66% of communication with people is non-verbal. I'm happy with that. I think that's, in some contexts, you could push, I think, into 70. Those are more rarer, or it depends a lot on various different things, and I'm thinking of certain situations that I arrive at, and certainly the situations where people I know more than other people, or friends, people I would see more commonly in the same sort of place, in a public bar. There's people I know. I go to a public bar where I go usually once a week. They always arrive there when I'm going as well. We get talking and chatting, and I've got used to each other's body language here and there. Not that I need to read it, because these people are fine anyway. Um, I will use reading the body language to to add to my social skills anyway. And it does help. And there's certain things in cues. If you look up Vanessa Van Edwards, a book called Cues by her, she talks about the body language things you can do rather than just reading somebody to get an educated guess or how they feel about the whole conversation or whatever. There's things you can do to make them feel better with the conversation. If somebody tilts ahead, I've mentioned this before, I think, tilts ahead a bit and slightly in conversation while they're looking at it, they will seem more amicable. Why? Why is that? Well, the reason for that is you tilt your head when somebody asks you, "Can you hear that? I've got a funny sound I can hear. Can you hear it?" And you're like, Somebody would tilt their head. So perking one of the ears up, focusing your ear on the, I suppose, sound that might be going on. Well, because of that, tilting your head while looking at somebody in communication, it makes you look more attentive because it looks like you're trying to listen to them more attentively, focusing your ear on what they're saying. Now that makes sense, right? It's a good thing to keep in mind, but don't overdo it. Try talking to somebody and suddenly going like this and all that. You're gonna look a bit weird, right? So yeah, 66%. I've got enough. I've got quite a bit of reading to do on this book. I'll share some information about it with you. It has great grandiose promise, this book, which makes me dubious, But I may be able to extract from it some useful things at some later in the future, sometime next year. I might say what it is, and I don't think the woo-woo stuff all out there, that there's a lot of nonsense around these subjects put out there and published in books and so on that really doesn't deserve to be mentioned, with things like, if this is going to be as good as it claims to be, then I will mention it. It's been a good read so far, actually, and they're mentioning experts like Mark Bowden and these other guys. Go and look at Behavior Panel on YouTube. I've recently discovered them, and they're great. They're brilliant. These types of guys who might study body language of JF. Those who know who JF is, this French Canadian weirdo. No offense to the Canadians, all are French. Whoever you are, but he is definitely a weirdo and highly suspect of certain things I've mentioned before, human trafficking and so on. He does a number of classic things, but he doesn't reveal much either. He did a number of classic things which I did a short analysis on that's really got backed up. It wasn't just like, I know, I thought, oh, maybe he got something in his eye. We'll see. It's a classic eye rub in line with talking about something relating to a visual perception. But that eye rub kept coming back every time it was referred to. So there's something in relation with that. Exactly what, I'm not truly sure, but usually when people are talking about a visual thing and they're going like this, it's because they don't like what they saw or were seeing. Yeah, in the experience. Which with JF, it could, I don't know. JF's too creepy. It's just weird. Yeah. So I think 66% is pretty good, pretty accurate actually. When you really think about it, it's been analysed, and you really analyse it instead of repeating. Oh, I reckon it was like 80% or whatever. I've done that, and then started thinking, is it really that high? It couldn't be. To analyse what you believe about certain things, like I've already said, is like, oh, it's what they say, the experts say, is it? And, this is where the experts on any subject matter get annoyed, because it's like, how did that get around? It gets propagated around by assumption. A lot of things. And gets drowned out. The truth facts can be drowned out in favor of consumerism and entertainment. As I keep saying, that's one of the reasons why America has had some failings of the so-called, many failings. Then let's put it that way. It's the only reason, really, not the only reason, but a number of reasons why you end up with an idiot like Trump in the first place. Popularity contest, but screw the facts, don't matter. And you end up with an idiot involved in politics and now recognized as a direct threat to their republic or democracy. They both are very similar, so they're used interchangeably in America. I noticed that quite a bit. They talk about a democracy and a republic as if it's the same thing, and they are similar. So, regardless, I think that's all I got to say for now. So think about that, 66%. And yeah, it does make more sense to me, especially to me, hopefully to other people, especially to those who have studied body language, and experts are agreeing with this percentage as well. So maybe we should repeat that mantra until the experts might say something different. But really, when you do properly analyze it, when you follow it through in your brain, how conversation goes, how words go, again, words in certain contexts are different, with different situations, events, and so on, and how the word is spoken, loudly, quietly, sarcastically, in or part of a joke or whatever, and it's all. Again, you could have a whole sentence that's said very sarcastically and not even change a word against something that isn't said sarcastically, and it sounds or means things very differently. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's it. That's all I've got to say. Cheers. Bye. Take care, and I'll look forward to doing another video soon.